Hello, listeners. This is Samidha Mohanty, and you are listening to the CHRO Mindset Podcast.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the season 3 of the CHRO Mindset Podcast. Following 2 amazing seasons, we are returning with even more engaging discussions and practical takeaways for all of you. Today, we have Samidha Mohanty joining us on the podcast. She is a seasoned HR leader who brings close to 2 decades of work experience across different industries and geographies, leading people charters in startups, mid-scale to large multinationals like Intel, Vodafone GCC, IDFC First Bank, Aditya Birla Group, Infosys BPO, and many more. In her latest stint, she was the CHRO for a healthcare firm. She has led the designing, creation, and delivery of growth outcomes for businesses and people both through strategic business partnering, rich learning and talent development initiatives, robust performance management, and change and transformation journeys. Samidha has been recognized as an HR leader, delivering results, especially on areas of business growth, through the richness of organizational talent and culture building strategy. She is an executive coach, mentor to upcoming HR professionals, and acknowledged for creating strong HR teams and professionals. An army kid, Samidha did her schooling from all across India, is accountancy and commerce major with an MBA from Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies, and has a master's in labor laws and labor welfare from Symbiosis Law College. Samidha, we are thrilled to have you here and welcome to the CHRO Mindset Podcast.
Thank you, Pulkit. Really happy to be here and looking forward to a great conversation.
Okay, awesome. So let me brief our audience a little bit about what the topic for today's podcast is. In this episode, we dive into shifts making business strategy, people strategy non-negotiable, from purpose and well-being to alignment and retention. We'll explore what real CEO CHRO collaboration looks like, why culture beats perks, and how mindset shifts, not just metrics, drive outcomes. We also tackle big questions like, is employee happiness scalable? What's killing growth faster, bad strategy or ignored culture? And should we stop calling it people strategy altogether? For leaders serious about building people powered growth, this one is for you. So let's get started. Samidha, I have an icebreaker question to begin with for you. What's one common misconception that business leaders have about HR strategy and growth?
Okay, so we start with the bang then. I think, Pulkit, to be very honest, the biggest misconception, I think, is that CEOs or business leaders may have about people strategy is that it does not drive revenue. That HR is good to have. It's great when the tide is high. When everything is going fine, let's focus. Let's do all that we can. But I think that mindset or that misconception, like you called out, it couldn't be further from truth. HR or a strong people strategy is actually the differentiator which can, kind of really impact your revenue. I have a term for it, Pulkit. I've used it, with other business leaders or my team members. It's the cost of potential lost. When you really want to be just okay with surviving, that's fine. Somehow we connect numbers only, to sales and, like project deadlines and, number of lines of code, etc. Everything in HR, I mean, if you want to, can be, brought down to the last number and how it impacts your bottom line. So I think that is a huge misconception. HR is not fluff, it's not soft, it's not good to have. It is actually, and you started with that, a very key pillar of your growth strategy.
Great. So let's now get to the core of the today's topic that we have, right? So in 2025, what are the biggest shifts forcing companies to rethink people's strategy as a business leader, according to you?
I have a feeling that I'm expected to start with AI at the workplace, and I think I will, mainly because it's not about the hype. I'm not asking. I mean, my suggestion would be that I don't think we should either get too excited or too enamored or too worried about AI. I mean, we've had these discussions in our fraternity, and I've had this discussion with other business leaders I've partnered with. Technology has always done this to the work landscape, right? This is not new. I mean, we've seen technology. A few years back it was digitization, automation. Of course AI is at the next level. I mean, there's no denying that. There is a whole human decision making, which has become easier now. But I think the first trend, and I'm sure you'll go deeper into it later, Pulkit, but I think getting our organizations and people ready to do more meaningful things because you have help from AI is something we need to think about. It can be a boon or a bane, like most things in technology are, but I do feel that it has huge potential to be a boon. Of course, there are related aspects like ethics in AI, etc., which we can always cover later. But I think that would be the first biggest trend that the people strategy needs to bake in as to how do we make the most of this AI wave. The second big trend, I think that a lot of organizations are talking about, but I mean, maybe, you know, not to the extent that we should. It's not a new term, but it's suddenly become very buzzy, is ESG. If I recall, ESG has been around for more than 2 decades as a term which was introduced. I mean, it was a while back. We've heard about it. Now it has become, suddenly very, important in discussions because there's a statutory implication to it. But I truly feel that organizations who want to go to the next level, I mean, whether it's environmental metrics like your carbon footprint, or social or governance like equality metrics, diversity metrics, your contribution back. I really feel, and in personal space, we say good things happen to good people. I would say really good things happen to really good companies. If you make that, it has a business benefit. But I feel in some cases, you have to just wait. ESG, if we start putting in the efforts now from a people strategy standpoint as to what are the metrics under ESG that can make you stronger, that would help. I think the third thing I would talk about is it's not new. VUCA has been around. I will not use that terminology. But you and I were just talking before the
Yeah.
podcast, Pulkit. There is so much happening in the world. Geopolitical tensions. There was a post-COVID boom. Where everybody was like on cloud nine. We had a plethora of organizations hiring like there's no tomorrow. Now suddenly, everybody is like the markets. They're so unpredictable. I think the scale at which the world changes has become faster. And I think from a people strategy standpoint, and I've touched upon this in some articles that I wrote and published, but I think it's no longer a luxury to sit down with pen and paper when things start to change. I think people strategy, business leaders, CHROs, HR people need to sit before it actually hits you to look at the macro environment. World is becoming smaller. There are recessions, then there are booms, then there are recessions. How do we prepare our talent in our organization? So I think that would be the third thing. The fourth trend, I think that, and since we're talking about 2025, I'm not talking about the classic trends, Pulkit, is just more humanness. I know it is very natural for HR people to talk about, human connect. We do stand for human resources. But I think in today's world, whether it's your employee or your customer, there is so much change. There is so much information, there is so much distraction. FOMO has been around for a long time, but suddenly I feel in 2025 or post COVID, FOMO is hitting everybody harder than ever. And when all these trends are happening, I think that is something where business leaders, HR leaders need to sit down and really think about how do we build more. Everybody is craving more humanness. We we look at posts on LinkedIn with kindness and care, and everybody is smiling or talks about it. I mean, of course business is important, of course you need to grow, because that is what you stand for. You're creating employment. But the how of it, I think that is something which is becoming more and more important. And I think the last point is actually a subset, but I will touch upon it nevertheless. Somewhere I think, in the HR world, from moving away from payroll and admin to like becoming really strong partners and enablers, we used to focus on culture. There was this period in, even if I talk about India or globally, I think again with so much so much changing across the world, sometimes it's very natural to move away from a culture mindset. I think we need to develop that piece around, what do we want to be known for, and focus on that all over again in 2025. So these would be my top five trends: AI, ESG, the humanness, looking at the macro level, pre-planning, preempting, and of course, culture, which includes, who you are, what do you want to be known for, and focus on the human part of it. I think a lot more than one is, than required.
Okay, great. I think those are some awesome five pillars that one must keep in mind. Uh, let's
Thank you.
not talk about business growth and people growth, right? Which is where the CEO and the CHROs come into picture. So, according to you,
Yeah.
there are a variety of theories, but I'd love to hear from you. Uh, how does it look like a strong alignment between the CEO and the CHRO in very practical terms?
I know you're saying practical, but let me start. I think the moment you ask this question, like what does a good alignment look like? It looks like symphony.
Okay.
I don't want to sound very poetic. I will get into the real examples, but trust me, Pulkit, I mean, 20 years in the industry, I'm very fortunate to have worked with, known, and, looked at businesses and people at close quarters. And whether it was when I was a youngster or, through the middle stages, or even when I was on the decision making tables, when business and the CEO or CHRO, or the business heads and the HR partners or HR team members, when they are aligned, it actually uh, it looks like, you don't have to put up a front to look nice. You know what I'm saying? One doesn't have to make an effort. It is effortlessly felt by employees. I don't know how else to put it. I can give a few examples. It's a lot of organizations will say that, push business, we have to, stand for our people, and some HR will say we are there because business is there. And I always used to tell my team members or even my partners, it's never going to be a yes or no conversation. It's going to be, let's do what's right conversation. And if my team members listen to this, they will all smile, because I used to tell them that, your job is not to always agree or to always disagree. Your job is to work with business, not as an, and this actually I was corrected by a senior leader once when I was talking to him, and I said, my team is there to enable. He said, no, Samita, they're not there to enable, they are my partners. Enable kya, matlab, what is enable? So it stayed with me, and I truly believe when a CHRO, a CEO, or business and HR are fully aligned, it's not just that you put up a beautiful front in front of the client, or in front of the team in a good town hall. It is when you're working on deeply, deeply strategic people and business problems together. You challenge each other. It does not mean there are no disagreements. It does not mean there are no debates, but there is no ego. There is no agenda, and how does it come across? I'll give an example of an organization. I mean, I've been on both sides, but uh, you know, there were two or three times when in my career, there was 2008, there was post 2020 in the COVID area. So I will not name the organizations, but you just let me just share that, in those times when you come out of, or you're going through a very tough time, or even when you're going through a good time, you know, the people function and the business function become one. It is not that, business is has to look at, they adopt and adapt and take on, and they feel that, people is not just left with HR, it is my responsibility. And HR in the other room is telling their own team members, we are not here to do just HR work. What is your understanding of how business is impacted? So it's like really not, it has doesn't have to be shown it. And the best part is employees feel it,
Hmm.
Pulkit. They know when business and HR is not connected, and they can see it and they can feel it. Whatever you try, when they are connected, you will see employees are happier and they have more faith in the system. They stick around longer. The biggest thing is the brand. Outside, the organization is known as a place where, you will not hear that I don't know what HR is doing there, and you will not hear that people practices are great, but I mean, I'm not excited about work. You'll hear both are happening, and I think that is the biggest practical indicator when they are in sync.
Awesome, awesome. I love that piece where you said that it's like a symphony, right? It's effortless.
I got a little carried
Yeah,
away
yeah.
with the
No, no, I
poetry, but
absolutely, and I think that happens in across pockets in various functions, right? Could be
yeah,
sales and marketing, could be product and
yes,
sales, right? So we
finance,
see all the times
yeah.
in different pockets. But that was awesome. Next, moving on to now, every strategy, there could be a variety of things that one can cover, from a tactical perspective. But then there are some must-haves also, right? So from your in your experience, what are those two, three non-negotiables that every people's strategy should now include? And if you were to talk about 2025, what's your take on this?
I think these are not just applicable to 2025, Pulkit. I kind of feel they have these three must-haves have according to my personal experience of working across, like you called out, some wonderful places, partnering and all. But I think they're more important now than ever. I think the first one is, and it is connected to the first point I made. I think checking for ethics and integrity and a purpose fit. And I'll tell you why. You know, uh, things are changing at a pace faster than before. And there is, in general, I think uh, uh, the level of patience in terms of meeting numbers, the level of questions, in terms of what is the impact you're creating, come at a pace faster than before. When things are hot, I think the grays become bigger, and I think it might work for some time, but not in the long run. So I think from a uh, checklist standpoint, I think ethics, integrity, and whether the purpose fit of that individual is aligned with the organization is a big one. I think the second one would be learning and delivery agility, Pulkit. I'm not getting into the debate of generalist versus specialist. This is not where I'm
Hmm.
coming from. I'm talking about just pure adaptability. I think people who have I know we're talking about it a lot more. I remember I had taken a break long back in my career. I think just 4 5 years in, and I have taken a break to, and I talk about it because I the really amazing life experience. I traveled for about 6 to 8 months. This was more than 15 years back. So I was backpacking across Europe, Asia, and at that time when I came back, it was very difficult for people to understand who does that. Like who just quits a job to, like, I think I was, like I tell, I was hit by the quarter life crisis or something. But today, I think the world is a lot more open to people having different experiences, moving across industries, moving across roles, picking up, learning that is, expanding their horizon. I think we should look for those, skills as well, because organizations are going to change a lot faster. Transformation is going to hit a lot faster. So I think after ethics and integrity and a purpose check, the next check would be learning and delivery agility. Also delivery. It's not just learning, and so you have to come back and apply it. So I think that. And the last uh, must have, I think would be a little controversial, but I have a bias for that. I think is the check for doers. I feel over time there is a lot of thinking and ideation and also talking happening. I think we need to build in checks for just solid
Hmm.
execution. People who get stuff done. I think thanks to our education system, thanks to the availability of knowledge and information all around us, we thankfully have really, great ideas and, uh, planning and all of that. But I think the third thing, and because execution is something that, is something which is really the when rubber hits the road, how is the person actually, can they sustain through it, and how do they do it? So I think these would be my three must haves: ethics, integrity, purpose, learning and delivery agility, and doers. Let's look for doers.
Okay, awesome. Let's build on the purpose pillar that you spoke of, right? So, how do you think purpose at work connects to growth and retention in modern workplaces?
I'm smiling because I think in a way we were also just touching upon that before we started, Pulkit, and yes, it's building on that. it's very close to my heart. The whole piece of purpose. I think purpose is the only thing that gets you going or keeps you going when the going is tough. And I think we have misconceptions about purpose. And you shared and I shared that I'm an army kid, a Fauji kid, and a lot of times people would ask that oh, but what are we really doing? We're not in the forces, we're not doctors who are making real impact. And I feel that purpose is not just in the big things. Of course, there is the forces, and there are doctors, and there are teachers, and there are people where we have tangibly recognized that they are doing a lot, but everybody does their bit. If we don't feel purposeful, uh, I think, you know, it becomes very dry. Life is very dry. There's no juice in life beyond a point. And I think we don't have to only work on the great things. I mean, there is, you're in learning, how is it impacting the employee? What is going out? You're in marketing. What is that one brand? How is it going to change the face of, things? And this holds you, tight, and you can, kind of extract strength from it when you're feeling down and out. I think purpose is it can't, and that's why I said the purpose check is very important. I think purpose is what gives you the strength and the resilience to still stand tall when things are falling all around you.
Okay, super agree with you. Let's now talk about employee well-being, right? So, from your experience, uh, how do you see employee well-being? Is it a perk or a pillar in the long-term growth strategy?
It's a pillar. I mean, short answer first, it is a pillar. It's no longer a perk, Pulkit. I mean, why I say no longer is because employee well-being has also had an evolution. Let me break it up into two small parts. I remember this example long back in my consulting days. We were working with this particular auto component, organization, and it was a factory in the middle of nowhere. And while they were looking after their people, uh, it was May. The cafeteria did not have enough ventilation, etc. And something as small as making the place more comfortable while you're eating actually helped with the productivity numbers. I remember this was a long time back, but we underestimate, and I'm making my point for the first part of the question. We Before we jump into the big things, I think getting the basics right is the step one of employee well-being. How strong and fair is your performance management system? Do you give comfortable working space to your employees? Uh, do you actually ensure that while you have a great leave management or leave policy, people are actually taking that leave without feeling guilty? These are basics of employee well-being that I think we need to look at, uh, with the lens that, let's make sure at least this is going smoothly. Now, the second part about your 2025 and beyond, I think it is, all of us would agree that in the recent past, the number of times we hear people in their 40s having heart diseases, youngsters getting burnt out, toxicity at the workplace. I mean, this is so real. And also because the world has, like we would discuss, right? It's evolving, it's changing at a pace which is unprecedented. I think the next level of employee well-being, like I said, it's not a perk anymore. I don't think we should be pleased just with free lunches and table ping pong tables or TT tables or just basics anymore. I think we, and again, it is not it. HR can be the driver of this, but it has to be core to business leaders as well. I mean, directly, you are responsible for your teams. HR will always be there to support, and maybe in terms of scaling it, you bank on HR. But employee well-being starts with manager and his or her
Mm.
employee. You know, is the person feeling psychologically safe with you in the team? Are they able to take that time off to deal with a difficult life stage? You know, are you seeing that they've started suddenly going quiet? What are you doing about that? You know, if you're seeing that there is health getting impacted of your team member, what do you do? And it starts with the manager. It is like most important things in life, it starts at home. Like, in home, I mean the team. So I think employee well-being, I would say that for the next, in 2025 and going ahead, two or three things that we really need to look at is one, are our employees feeling, you know, that they are in a place where they don't have to keep second guessing themselves. Should I ask for this? Can I take that day off? Would I be, asked to, can I do it at my own pace? I think first is that psychological safety. Second, I think is, in general, what are we doing about burnouts or passive aggressive toxicity? Are we actually taking a step back and saying, is this person bringing their best? If not, why not? And I think the third is the physical realm of it, where, we're saying that, okay, how can we make them comfortable to work with us? And I think let's start from there. Rather, sometimes, what happens in employee well-being is, I've seen a lot of organizations, you don't have to chase snazzy latest things that others are doing. We need to sit, look at our organization, our team, pick the top two, three areas we think which is coming in the way of well-being, and just go after that. So that would be my take on employee well-being.
Awesome. Some of the most brilliant commentary I have heard on employee well-being. Very practical, I must say. Thank you for that. Let's now talk about any example of people first initiative that you have come across that directly influence business outcomes.
I think, you know, my first job, Pulkit, was actually sales before my MBA. I mean, it's not, I don't, that was ICICI Prudential, and I'm taking the name now, but, of course, as an organization, it's fantastic. I worked for just a year and then I went for my B school. But I think the first instance of looking at how happy people deliver fantastic results, and it doesn't get more results than sales, and that 1 year taught me so much, was when, and it's not just my example, there were other managers with team members, you know when we start looking after our people, when we are genuinely vested. My case, and I've seen others, and this is a small example, of course I'll give org examples as well, but how it changes your perception is, they really start to deliver. Your numbers go up when you have that fire. And that fire is not easy to light and then maintain, Pulkit. But when your people are happy and motivated, they can move mountains. I mean, personally, I have seen, I mean, not just with my experience, but in that team and in so many other teams over the last 20 years, worked with so many organizations, whether it was sales, whether it's techies, whether it's bankers, whether it is, I mean, been in close, working equation with all of them, you actually see performance start to go up. Of course, we'll not talk about exceptions, but I'm saying that most people, when you have a people strategy that is that believes in people, takes care of them, invests in them, and helps grow them, you will get that love back. And it doesn't just come in terms of loyalty. Of course, that will be there. Why will they leave you if they're happy? But they get motivated to do better. It's almost like, I can't do this organization or my manager wrong, because look at how well I'm treated here. And I have, if I were to give you a couple of more examples, without taking names, of course, but there was one particular business in an organization where I was at, and I was looking after learning over there. And, this was a new business, and everybody was kind of talking about it's not doing well, and what do we do about it? People are in complete hinterland, and we were not able to really make our mark. I saw the business head, the vertical head, drop everything, get into the places for like the next 15 days, move along with his team, and not just to crack deals and sell the product, genuinely stay with them. And the shift, I mean, it's not exaggerating, it was one of the top performing businesses close to 3 quarters later, or almost a year later. But from really being not even having a voice at the table, and almost on the verge of kind of saying that what are we doing about it, there was a complete turnaround. Post COVID, I remember that there was this 2023 period where everyone seemed to have like 5 job offers, and attrition was at an all time high. Everybody's hopping around. we used to do a lot of research, also of organizations where the attrition was low. And, without naming, I think we all know the people, whether it's, organizations in India or outside, it was directly linked to the fact that if your people strategy is looking at hiring the right people with those checks that we spoke about some time back, investing into them, looking after them, and giving them a growth path, which is actually a people strategy in a nutshell, they stuck around. Attrition was the lowest for those organizations, which directly impacted the fact that business was not affected when others were crying attrition and throwing up their hands in air, saying that we're losing our talent. Some of these organizations in technology, especially I'll talk about technology, we used to do a lot of research for that, including ours. We actually were in a much better space than a lot of the other organizations because we chose not to drop the people agenda the moment things got rough. So I think absolutely lots of examples out there.
Awesome. That's a brilliant story. Thank you for sharing that. Let's now talk about the mindset shift that the leadership teams need to be able to really prioritize people as a strategic driver, because there's so many things up in the air all the times, right? It can be really difficult for them to sort of start to think like how they ideally should, right? Talking about people as a strategy. So, what are those mindset shifts that they need to think of?
I mean, it might sound very basic, but it is a shift. I think that business leaders or the need to think about is when it comes to people strategy, there is no short term. I'm not saying that HR or a good people strategy will not have quick wins or low hanging fruits, as we love to call them. Uh, but I really think that I've noticed this, and it is a little unfortunate in some organizations. When it comes to people, we are human beings, we're not machines. You can't turn off, fix them. Things take time to show results. And, one example that we talk about is, in a couple of the past organizations I was at, they were at different stages of their employee engagement scores, their employee satisfaction scores. Like I said, you do a few things, they might give you instant returns in terms of employees feeling happy. But for a good people strategy, I think one mindset shift that needs to happen is please think long term, not quarter on quarter. You cannot expect that you put in this much, resources into a people strategy today and tomorrow things will, attrition will suddenly fall and brand will suddenly grow and learning will, we will have all the stickiness in the world. It needs, when it comes to people initiatives, you need to give it some time. So I think that would be the first mindset shift. I think business leaders need to think about. There are no overnight, silver bullets flying around in people's strategy. Most of them need love, attention, and care because we're humans. We're not machines. I think the second thing from a mindset shift that I would talk about is that the term war for talent has been used, I think, since time immemorial. But I would want to say that actually, in my experience, it is very real. And I think the next mindset shift I would maybe want to talk about is that good talent, Pulkit, like really good talent. We have all met those kind of people. It's not the shiny ones. It's not the smooth. It is people who you just know they have so much that can halve your concerns. That's half the war won. So if you have the right talent, I think sometimes we get too enamored, and I've seen this with HR as well as business. We chase latest fads. Today this is the topic of the day or the flavor of the season, let's do this. Take something, you know focus it all around what, because one line my dad used to always say, Pulkit, is it's always about the man behind the machine. You can have the best systems, you can have AI, you can have technology, you can have servant leadership, you can have the right diversity programs. uh, I'm simplifying it, but really it's about what are the people behind that program and initiative really doing to make it thrive. So I think, the idea is get the right, get your best folks in, and then let them shine. Don't chase them, in terms of they know what they have to do. So I think the war for talent is real. That would be my second request. Focus on getting the right talent and focus on keeping them with you, focus on growing them with you. And on that note, I would also say, this is a sub point to that, you can groom talent. It's not something you're born with. Yes, some people have certain advantages, when they come, but what are you doing to groom talent? Are we giving up on talent too soon? So I think that would be my second one. And I think the third one, which I would say from a mindset shift, is, meritocracy, and get the balance between meritocracy and compassion. You don't have to, it's very easy to be on one extreme end. And I think a lot of people find it very difficult to, leaders find it very difficult to oscillate between, they feel either we are only meritocratic or we are only people focused. It doesn't have to be like that. It's easy to be like that, let me put it. It's very easy to be on one side of the spectrum. The most difficult thing is getting the balance right. But I think that's the mindset shift I would expect, not just leaders, managers, team managers. If you're a middle level manager, how do you draw that balance between driving performance and meritocracy without losing your soul, your compassion, and your empathy? Because I think, you need that performance and meritocracy and rigor focus to grow, but you also have that cultural element of compassion and empathy, which can be your differentiator. So these would be the three mindset shifts, I think, and it's possible. Let me tell you, not always, but been there, done that. It is possible, and it is beautiful when you can do that.
Awesome. Great. Let's now switch into our rapid fire section, right? So I'm going to ask you very short questions, expecting short answers.
Sure.
But if you want to elaborate, by all means, please do that. So let's start with our first question: strategy or culture, which kills growth faster when ignored?
Strategy will kill faster, but culture will kill you for
Yeah.
longer if ignored.
Okay. One HR buzzword you think deserves to die?
I think many of them deserve to die, if you ask me. No, you're asking me about HR.
Yeah. Yeah, you
I
can.
think it's, I'll
Yeah,
come
you
back.
can call
Let's circle
workplace
back.
buzzword also.
No, no, I think, it is, I know we take a lot of heat for using this whole I'll come back to
Okay,
you
I'll
and
come back to
circle
you. Okay.
back. Yeah, the standard uh, uh, thing. But, I mean, I'll just, maybe on this one I'll elaborate. We're joking about it. I'm part of the fraternity. I'll be badgered by my fellow fraternity members. I think, while I was saying it, I was thinking, why do we say it? I think people don't get into that, and I'm not standing up to do, the morale boosting of HR. I think anytime somebody is saying that, and it could be, frontline in retail or anywhere. I think it's just usually around two things. I mean, if you're saying we'll circle back, they probably are not equipped enough to solve it at that time. Who doesn't want to solve a problem? I mean, we all get into HR to solve business and people problems. So I think while we're joking about it, I think it's something for others to mull on, that probably the person is just not equipped to solve it, or not empowered enough to solve it. So, left to a person, they'd love to solve problems. Everybody loves to do that. But yes, let's circle back would be the HR buzzword that is bringing us down.
Okay. A people metric every business head should track.
Customer and business understanding, and I'm not saying this for HR. I think in general, even from a people standpoint, we don't track it, by the way, in a lot of places, Pulkit. Uh, but I think that it should become a metric for gauging people. I think customer and business understanding, and uh, I think next level of organizations should track two or three well-being
Okay.
metrics.
Okay. Understood. One word that should define the 2025 workforce.
My wish for the word is to be happier.
Okay.
I think, we were talking about it for some time before. I think purpose and happiness, that can help solve a lot of
Okay.
stuff.
So I have a very correlated question next. What's more scalable, employee happiness or employee alignment?
Employee happiness will help you scale employee alignment.
Okay. What's a trend HR leaders are underestimating today?
Yeah, this is interesting. I know I didn't touch upon it, Pulkit, during the past, couple of questions or the questions that you asked. But I think the trend is going to be about loud quitting. I don't think I have read about it. It just came up. Quitting, I've of course read about, but and the reason it came up is I was just discussing, with a colleague. We're catching up, and we were discussing generation Gen Z or Gen Z, and it just came up instantly because just a day or two back, I'm a hardcore millennial, and with very millennial mindsets, and we were just discussing how it is like that rite of passage for every generation to do bashing of the. Why do we do that? Like there was this time where millennial bashing was like everybody's favorite pastime. Now it is Gen Z bashing. But the reason I'm talking about it is I think the trend we are not prepared for. See, millennials were one step the next level to the past generation where they started looking or questioning things which maybe the previous generations didn't. We obviously didn't kind of completely do hustle bashing, but I think a lot of millennials had a more abundant mindset that there's enough for everyone in the pie. I'm not a job hopper. I look for more purpose in my job. So I think that started with the millennials. But I think the one trend that is probably going to become bigger, and it's not just Gen Z, I think a lot of people is going to be, people will not quietly quit. I think they will assertively quit. There is no kind of awkwardness, and thank God for that, in a generation which is looking for more meaning in their workspace without compromising on their health and happiness. Did the previous gens get this wrong? Not really. Every generation did what was right for that time. So it's not about hailing somebody and putting down another generation. But I think in general, the trend for anyone is going to be about, if they're not finding work to be meaningful, driven ethically, challenging them, and being looked after because they are giving their best to you. It's not just that the organization is doing a favor, it's the employees are also giving their best to you. I think they will want to not quit quietly. They will be very open about why they are leaving. So that's one trend.
Okay. Last question of this awesome conversation. Is it time we stop calling it a people strategy and just call it the strategy? Yeah.
No, I would say actually
Mhm.
no. You know, uh, because then we are, I don't know if I'm wording it right. I think then we're being a little condescending to people's
Hmm.
strategy. It is people's strategy. Why we shouldn't think or feel, awkward about saying so. It is a pillar of your larger growth strategy. There is your, I'm guessing when you said strategy, it's a business
Yeah.
strategy. So there is a business strategy. And then your people strategy is a different pillar. And I think we should not layer it under growth, under business. It is part of a pillar of your org strategy. So I think as a last question, I would say that it is that pillar of the organization that has its own place in the sun. It can be the differentiator. And I think it's important that, and a lot of times HR itself gets a little conscious about calling it people strategy because, we want to show that we're aligned to business. Being a people strategy means you're aligned to business and people outcome. So let's call it people strategy and take pride in that.
Awesome. It's been an amazing conversation, Samida. Thank you so much for taking out time to speak with us. Uh, right
No,
from
pleasure.
discussing various misconceptions, which is HR is not about driving revenue, to looking at the upcoming trends around AI, ESG, bringing back the humanness, the empathy, and culture and all those things. I think you very well laid out. How 2025 augurs. Of course, it's been a very different kind of a year so far, right? And then your thoughts around CEO, CHRO alignment. I think I fell in love with the concept of right?
Symphony.
Yeah, that was me for
Yeah, I'm so glad.
and some of the non-negotiables around purpose, integrity, you know delivery, agility. I think those were awesome. And what again really stood for me was check for doers. So like they say, strategy is. Um, it's very easy to strategize, right? It's the execution. So I think there's some quote by Peter Drucker which says strategy is commodity, execution is what matters the most. But anyways, that was awesome. And again,
On that note, Pulkit, sorry to interrupt. I think, I would always, because it resonated with you, you can do good strategy when you have been a good doer.
very true,
I really
very
believe in
true.
that. And I always share that, it is, there's this talk between, don't hard, there's nothing like, hard work is passe, do
Yeah,
smart
yeah.
work. It's the same. You can do smart work when you've been through the, like, how do you get to smart work without knowing where to start smart work, So thanks for calling it out. It's very close to my heart too. I think this whole doer thing. So glad to hear that it
Awesome,
resonated with
awesome.
you.
So overall, I think I was extremely enlightened. I would say, right, understanding how people's strategy and growth strategy sort of work together. And I do hope that companies who have not been able to do justice to this alignment start to think about it, because I think at the end of the day, it's the people who happen to be our biggest leverage, whether it's a team lead or a company lead or a founder or a CEO, right? So
Everyone.
again, thank you so very much for taking out time and sharing all the wisdom with us. So one question before we wrap up: how can our listeners contact you should they need any help?
Well, I mean, LinkedIn to begin with, top of mind. I mean, let's connect there. But I'm usually, I will definitely reply there. And yeah, from there we can carry it ahead. If people want to connect, definitely please reach out on LinkedIn, and we'll get the conversation going.
Super, super, awesome. Thank you so very much, Samida. Again, it was a pleasure
Thank
talking to you.
you. And I do want to call out Pulkit. I think this is a fantastic initiative. I went through past couple of podcasts, so thank you so much for inviting. It was a pleasure, and I think you're doing a great job because these conversations are important. I always feel if somebody can take even one thing and that makes a difference, that is an hour well spent. So thanks for bringing me, and inviting me to this, and wish you and your team all the very best for all your future conversations as well.
Thank you so much, Samida. Uh,
You take care.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thank
weekend.
you. To all the listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of the CHRO Mindset Podcast. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review if you enjoyed the episode.